Natalie, I want to talk to you a little bit about the El-Shaddaih orphanage. And you in particular were the first member of Central to know about the orphanage. Kind of tell me a little bit about how that came to be.
Social media, Facebook. I had just moved here after Dave and I got married, and she friended me within a month here. I had asked God, what is it that you want me to do here? What is my purpose here? And about a month in, I was here, and she friended me on Facebook, and the rest is history.
So you got to be more, you started to develop a relationship online.
We did.
And then...
we just kept talking. And
then how did Central get involved in that then?
The needs were getting so much that Dave and I were trying to do what we could, but it was so much. She had asked me, Mom, could you ask your church if they would be interested in helping? And so I said, I'll ask them and see what they say. And so I presented it to the elders here at the church, and they did their own investigating, and here we are.
So the church got involved in it, and kind of so. And you were the first missionary. In fact, our church sent a delegation of 3 people over there, and we were the first ones from the U.S. to actually visit the orphanage. And and so, what was it like there?
Oh, it was very humbling, first of all. Very different. Their winters are hot compared to what we're used to, but the children are just amazing. They blew my mind because they were just so kind to each other no matter what. They all look at each other like siblings. And just the work that's being done, you can see God has got his hand on it. Okay.
So, and what specifically, from the moment you got to know them, what were some of the things that you got involved in? And in particular, what needs did they have at that time?
Well, they had just about everything. They were bare bones.
Okay.
And they had to get the water from the river because they couldn't afford to get into the city tap. It was just too expensive. So they were going to bail water out of the river. So they had no running water. They had no toilets. They had a hole in the ground. So they had no septic system, no well. They had some electricity, but not a whole lot. And so they basically had their building, and they had thieves coming constantly. So she and I would brainstorm on my time where I wasn't talking to her, and I was trying to come up with off-grid thinking of they need water, they have their shelter, but they need more because there were so many children coming. And water, shelter, and food, and ways to become self-sustaining in as much as they could.
As I recall, back in the beginning, as we got to be involved as a church, you were just kind of planning out helping them get a water well.
Yes.
So now they have a water well of their own, and they've even been able to use that to allow people from the community to come and get water during the drought seasons and so forth. And so the needs from the very beginning were elemental, just food, clothing, shelter, health care, and education. They needed everything, did they? And so our church has been in a kind of a mission to help them generate steady cash flow, so that, because my understanding is that when you first started talking to her, they had 38 kids there.
Yes.
And then when we went over there, they had 70, and now they've got 100, and they got 200 on the waiting list.
And that's only in 2 years since we went.
Yeah. So how Bible-based is the orphanage?
It's Bible-based, absolutely. Okay. They glorify God.
They glorify God, don't they?
They put Jesus right at the top there.
That was just a huge thing that jumped out at me when we got there. Is they have a church on the compound, and they go to church every morning at 8 o'clock, and every night at 8 o'clock. and they even have a youth, a little pee-wee worship team where they lead themselves in worship and prayer, and they get down and their foreheads in the dirt,
Yep.
and they pray to God.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have nothing, they're totally dependent on God, are they not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah,
We all
yeah,
are.
yeah. So it just tugged at our heartstrings, and we were drawn in, and so you mentioned earlier that the Lord was involved.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And I think, our discussions have talked about how, like on our way home from there, it was like, we can't not help these people.
Yeah.
Right? It was just kind of like, we know the Lord's involved, He's drawing us to it, and to ignore it would be a sin.
Yeah.
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 So, well, thanks for sharing. Appreciate that.
Sure.